Trigger warning, this episode contains mentions of eating disorders and a brief mention of weights. We believe that this episode is really important in the education of mental health in Asian families, but if you feel like you will be triggered by it, please do not listen.
The ideal body type is so undefined.
It doesn't always have to be an endless chase towards a beauty standard, but rather like you're allowed to drop the beauty standard and you're allowed to just be.
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is the Stigma-Free Zone, a podcast collaboration between Because Mental Health, One Mind, Peace of Mind, and Stress and Calm. We are recording 4 podcasts for Mental Health Awareness Month, touching on trauma, procrastination, toxicity, and eating disorders. We are currently talking about eating disorders, and that includes the Asian mental health stigma, stress eating, and we are also going to end the podcast with a quick wrap up and also share a little bit more about our own organization.
So I have personally been through an eating disorder myself, so I haven't technically been diagnosed with anorexia or bulimia or any of those common ones, but I've been diagnosed with OSFED, which is other specified feeding or eating disorders. So basically what I do is just a combination of a lot of things, and I'd like to share my experiences. I know I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I feel like having an experience might be helpful to a lot of you. So I'll just kind of briefly share it. I'm in an Asian family, as most of us are in Hong Kong, and Asian families often stress about like looking thin, and every single time I meet up with my cousins and my extended family, they always comment on my appearance, and when I have lost weight, they'll say, "Oh, have you lost so much weight? That's so good." And if I've gained weight, they'll be like, "Oh, do you want to lose a bit of weight?" And that obviously really affected me throughout my life. That culminated into a breaking point up until like March 2020, when we first got into quarantine and all that. And that was when I started really doing exercise and all of that, because everyone on TikTok and YouTube was talking about Chloe Ting. So I started doing that, and I personally didn't see any results around that, and that put me into a whole new spiral. And I started controlling a lot of the things I ate, a lot of exercise, and it culminated into an actual eating disorder. And it still has remnants till now. Sometimes when I'm eating, I get really guilty, but then I actually always remind myself that, hey, this is a recovery and I'm doing as best as I can. And, you know, eating is fuel, calories is fuel, all that is really good for our bodies. Yeah, so basically that's my experience with eating disorders, and I definitely feel like Asian families have a long way to go with kind of destigmatizing eating disorders, as well as just stop commenting on people's bodies. Like my brother's in university, so we barely get to see him, but every single time my mom calls him, the first thing she comments on is his body. So I feel like there is a sort of room to improve in this way for Asian families.
It's so good like hearing like what you said, because like for me it was also like 2020 Chloe Ting. I remember like her ab workout. I think it has like hundreds of millions of views now. I think that was kind of like it was like a starting point almost. It kind of had like a snowball effect, and I think like personally I've always been told like, oh, you're so skinny, like stuff like that, and I think you kind of like internalize that, and it's kind of like, oh, so like that's what I should be. And I think with so many, like including Chloe Ting, but like trends online, you see like the hourglass shape, the thigh gap, all of that. I think all of that kind of, it's so I guess like built into our mindset. And like, you know, at some point, you know, I kind of became more aware of like calories and stuff like that. And I think kind of you get to a point where you look at a food and you can kind of like intuitively know how many calories it is and stuff like that. So I think it's a very hard like cycle to break out of, because it is physical, but it's also like all of it is like in your brain at the same time. And I think linking it all back to the Asian mindset, I think there's like a conflict of values, because there's you like Asian families generally value kind of finishing what's on your plate. Like at family gatherings and family dinners, you know, people will always kind of load food onto your plate, and that's a sign of like respect, right? It's a sign of, you know, caring for you. And they're like, when your grandparents ask you like, have you eaten yet? Like, what did you eat for dinner? Kind of stuff like that. There is this kind of expectation to be skinny and small. I think the Asian body type, you know, all of that, kind of in general, and it's hard to kind of manage all these different expectations, and because body weight can fluctuate so much and people's expectations can fluctuate so much, it's hard to be satisfied or like fit in with all of the expectations at once.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, the part about how loading food onto your plate is a sign of respect, and then they expect you to finish that food. And so that mentality has like always been instilled in me, and at meals, even if I don't want to eat stuff, I either get pushed to eat it or I feel guilty and still eat it. And I've had a bit of a problem with stress eating since I was little, and also with the clean plate thing that culminated in me being like severely overweight for a period of time during my primary years. My family either said, "Oh, it's good, you're plump," and that's a sign that you're growing good, and then the other said you need to lose weight, that's unhealthy, and that you don't look good. And so it was like a bit of a conflict. It didn't help that my family was one of the sorts that bought a lot of food for us at home. There's a whole cardboard box full of like chips and junk food that we have. And up till last year, whenever I felt like frustrated or I needed something to do, I always went and got some like chips or cookies from that box, and I didn't actually realize just how many excess calories I was taking in until I started really to look at what I'm eating. It was a hard process to stop eating that much junk food in a day. I went from eating 3 packs of chips to now I try not to eat any of that. But still, my family really likes buying food, and sometimes in the afternoon they put out a plate of something on the table and tell, "Hey, Athena, come to eat it." And when I refuse, they say, "Oh, you're so ungrateful. You refuse our food. We specifically bought it for you and your brother." That makes me feel guilty, but at the same time, I know that it's not healthy eating so much cake, eating like so much excess. I get their care, but it's also not every aspect of it is good.
Yeah, so I definitely think the media has a big influence on what people kind of think the ideal body is. Of course, the media sets all the trends, and they kind of form people's mindset in some kind of way. And of course, and I know a lot of people in like family gatherings, the family would say, "Oh yeah, oh, you're so skinny, you should eat more." And then the next time they see them, they go, "Oh, you gained so much weight, you should start exercising." And it's like sometimes like you feel like you're never good enough. And I've kind of learned to brush that off. I have a really hard time eating and stuff like that. So throughout my whole life, I've kind of had a harder time gaining weight and stuff. It was better a few years ago. But of course, sometimes it comes back and stuff like that. And of course, there's good days and there's bad days. And I was never really that concerned about it. Like I knew it might be a problem someday, but I was like, oh, I'm kind of like, I'm surviving, it's fine. And I never kind of seeked help or anything like that until my family actually started to notice. And then of course they brought me to a doctor, and I'm like on medication and like stuff like that to help me eat more and stuff. But I didn't notice how bad it got until I kind of had symptoms of like malnutrition and stuff. So like my hair would fall out. I would have like lack of like iron deficiency and stuff like that. And sometimes there were days where I would look in the mirror and I would be oh yeah, I can't stand in this certain light, or else like, oh, they're gonna see like my rib cage or something like that. Or oh yeah, I actually started standing with a hunched back, so like people wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you can see like the bone or like stuff. I didn't realize it was that bad until stuff like that happened, and now looking back at it, but of course it is getting better, and it does get better if you just kind of take care of yourself, or at least try to seek help.
So I feel like my problem is similar to just eating, but then since I do tend to pile on the stress, like when I'm really stressed out, I'll start like eating junk food. I'll like keep stuffing myself with like chips and like chocolate to like stop myself from worrying, or like stop myself from stressing out. So my personal experience was like when I was at like my normal weight, I was like around 46 kilograms, but then during coronavirus, in like a matter of months, I gained like a kind of hefty amount of weight. I gained like around 8 to 9 kilograms, and that's like not healthy. Gaining weight is kind of like good for my health, but then not like in such a short period of time, because that's like not normal for your body, and that's just like not healthy. Like that's something wrong with your body. And I started trying to like eat healthier and do more sports, because like similar to Haley, I'm also like an athlete, and during coronavirus everything just stopped and I couldn't do any sports, so my health was like actually declining due to like my intake of too many calories or too many like unhealthy food, as well as like not sweating it all out and like becoming like a healthy lifestyle. So like basically my lifestyle was like, I don't know, I was like a couch potato. I didn't move. I didn't like, yeah, basically how will I, like, I don't know how to say this, but then yeah, my situation was like really worse, and that's why I figured out why people constantly stress eat, since I underwent the same experience. And I feel like my advice would be to like find other ways to like relieve your stress instead of like stress eating, because like your health is your priority, and you shouldn't like keep on eating because it's just not healthy. Like maybe you can go on a walk, or like you can do sports if it's possible. I think yoga is actually a really good sport that I like doing, and I feel like it helped me kind of like lose weight as well as become more flexible, and like my joints are like really nice now, since like I've stretched them out every day, and like I'm not an old lady anymore. So that's my intake.
Thank you for sharing. I want to move towards body image a little more. If you guys have anything to say about eating disorders, you guys can always turn back. But I want to talk about specifically females being a little more built and a little more muscular. And I think that has always been such a big stigma, not just within the Asian community, but also just worldwide, internationally. I personally go to the gym. I work out a lot. I need it for my sport. And one thing that I'm always very self-conscious about, a little TMI, but I've always had like thicker thighs because of the lunging that I do for my sport. And I've gotten so self-conscious about it, and it's very uncomfortable to talk about. But yeah, so you know, whenever I wear, let's say, shorts or jeans, I always try to see if it looks good on me and my body specifically. I think this has always been a very big issue for me, because within the squash community, within the athlete community, everyone understands muscular body types, and we never like judge people for having thick thighs or more muscles, but once you're outside of that community and you're in school or you're with your family members, it's a completely different story. Like people will see it and judge it, and it gets really uncomfortable, especially when someone's staring at it. And I think being more open about females having stronger bodies is something that is very important, and we're definitely lacking in today's world. Strong bodies mean healthy bodies, and you don't always have to be small and timid in order to be pretty, especially in the Asian community. Everything small, the better, except for your eyes. They have to be big, apparently. But yeah, that's my side of the story. I never had to struggle with eating disorders because as an athlete, I always found myself having the quota to eat whatever I want to eat, and I had the privilege of, being able to think this way. But yeah, it's always a body image, not in terms of my size or my weight, but in terms of the muscles. I know it sounds a little weird, but yes, I hope you guys understand it.
Wow, Haley really just hit multiple points there. It's so weird how this is actually a controversial topic. I mean, I understand it's a relatively modern concept, but there was an actual debate over this, when women in the Olympics, of course they have to train their bodies too, because they want to excel in their sport. They just want to do as good as they can, but somehow because they were women, people found it uncomfortable, and I don't know, there are just a bunch of, I'm trying not to use the word insults, okay, people getting mad at them just existing with their bodies, what? So I'm really glad that we're in this age where at least body positivity is a concept that people are aware of, and people are aware that you're allowed to love bodies that aren't just whatever the default beauty standards is, because that is true. I think, in my opinion, one of the most valuable things that body positivity has brought us is just knowing that there's another option out there, knowing that it doesn't always have to be an endless chase towards a beauty standard, but rather you're allowed to drop the beauty standard and you're allowed to be just you're allowed to just be. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to this topic, especially on the personal side, but yeah, just once again, applause to Haley for hitting so many just amazing points. Yeah.
Yeah, I may be circling back a little bit, but I think, in terms of body types, I think there's this pressure, as in it's often associated as it's a symbol of success and validation in some ways, and that, I've achieved this. And then, in terms of exercise, I'm really athletic, but at the same time, you have this conflicting viewpoint that's oh, it's not very good to be an athletic build or have visible muscles. And I think, there's also this sense of discipline and self-control, and that, if you can't control your eating, or if you can't be disciplined and go to the gym at 6 a.m., there's this it's very, I think in the end, for me at least, it's kind of finding balance, and then kind of viewing food as fuel, and then exercise as something not to kind of counter food and calories or anything like that, but rather focusing on strength, and progress in terms of I may not have been able to do a push-up before, and now I can do 3, kind of focusing on goals like that, instead of looking into a mirror and trying to fit an expectation that in reality it doesn't really exist. We often kind of, we're oh, once I get to that goal weight, or once I get to blah blah blah, and this applies to other aspects of our life as well, but kind of we always think that once we reach a certain goal, we will be happy, but because this, the ideal body type is so undefined, it's really impossible. And I think it's really kind of up to us to focus on our own small goals, and also look for more meaningful ways to kind of relieve our stress, or kind of, because I think a lot of the time it can be a manifestation of our other concerns, and we kind of project whatever we're feeling onto our bodies because it's an easy target. So I think in the end, it's really focusing on our mental health and prioritizing, again, to kind of, because that really is the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, I completely agree with a lot of the points that everyone has just said. I'm also kind of working towards fitness goals rather than physical goals. So right now I'm working on my pull-ups, because that's a little bit hard for me. And I also agree with the fact that it's so weird that in modern day society, we often want women, and especially in the Asian community, to be smaller. Back in the Qing dynasty, they wanted our feet to be small, so they put it into I don't know what they did, but they like bound our feet together basically. And I feel like that's something that's still so prevalent in our society, that like women should be smaller and men should be bigger. That's why we have like this perception that like men need to grow muscle, but like if women do that, that's like not acceptable for some reason. So I also think that that's definitely something that I've experienced, and I think there's definitely room for improvement right here. And I'm personally, I'm not a really athletic person. I am very much a music and studying kind of person. So I'm not as muscular or athletic as other people, but I am kind of on the thicker side of things because I do hike a lot. As I said in a previous episode, I do hike with my dad like maybe once a month or so. Now I don't do it because I'm over in the UK where there's no mountains, but I definitely have seen the stigma, even from my own mother, that like, I'd rather you just like get slimmer and like stop doing weightlifting and just do cardio so you can lose weight. And I definitely think that this is something we should change, because honestly, being skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. And if you have muscle, you might actually be much more healthy than other people.
I don't know if I can confidently talk about it at like a place that I've never experienced, at least from like these personal stories that I've heard from you. But I guess from the other side, there is that obviously that generic nature to have, the smooth jawline, like, to be fit, to do all that, that you have to kind of upkeep and uphold within, or I guess you kind of, get made fun of. And I don't understand why other people make fun of other people for their body types. We're all different. We all have different builds, we all have different genetics, right? I don't think that it's fair to say that this is one specific body type that we have to stick towards to, and if you don't match that body type, then you're not fitting the beauty conventions. It's like ultimately we don't have any control of what we look like, even if you end up going to the extremes and you are, beautiful inside and out no matter what. And I think that it's really important to go see that. So that's, I guess, how I would perceive it from a male perspective. But yeah,
I think we have a tendency to call some boys scrawny or weak, and that's something that needs to be changed, definitely. So we are going to wrap up our last 4 episodes by quickly introducing our own organizations and what we do. And yeah, so I can start first. I'm the founder of Because Mental Health, and we have 3 main aims. The first one is to promote emotional well-being and the advancement of mental health through social media, podcast episodes, which is what we're doing, and the collaboration of events among the Hong Kong and international community. Our second thing is we bring in a wide range of perspective through partnering with clinical psychologists, PhD candidates, and professors. And last but not least, we of course educate mental health through psychology, neuroscience, and medicine.
As to not detract from the rest of the organizations here, I'll just make it really short. In the UK right now, we're working a lot of volunteering opportunities, as well as partnering with organizations to actually pass some policies. So right now, we have partnered with actually Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health to pass a bill in the UK to stop the selling of diet pills, which include weight loss pills and muscle building supplements, which really relates to this episode, because we often think of diet pills as just weight loss pills, but actually muscle building supplements are also really dangerous to people. So that's all that's going on in the UK.
Okay, yeah, so it's really cool to hear what you guys have been doing, and I think your work sounds so meaningful. And Sydney and I will definitely try to work towards that as well. But Sydney and I are the kind of the new leaders, the current leaders of Peace of Mind, which is kind of like similar, but it's like a student advocacy organization for mental health. And basically what we want to do is make mental health more accessible for young people and the wider community in general to kind of talk about and destigmatize these kind of mental health topics within our communities. And so basically we also do like social media outreach, and we do kind of in-school events like assemblies, different activities.
I was like thought of an example that I thought like might help you get a better picture of like what our organization does at school. So there was one time like when we were still doing online learning, when Jade and someone else from our team hosted this assembly, like online assembly, for our entire year. And it just talked us through some basic yet like essential mental health tips. And at the end, my most memorable part was that there was this Padlet for us all to share our online learning experiences and like our struggles. And just like seeing the entire year come together was really inspirational. So yeah, we're just looking for more moments like that where like we can forget the CVs and forget the universities like upcoming for a while and just like like connect the entire year for a bit and give everyone a space to talk about our emotions. And as a side note, me and Jade are like pretty you said founders, not fathers, right? I heard fathers. But yeah, leaders of this organization. So we are looking forward to like exploring any possibilities at all. And so yeah, talking to you all has really inspired me to like just think about the potential of a mental health organization as such.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder of One Mind. We focus on using arts and different mediums to portray mental health, to de-stress from mental health. Whether it's, volunteering, whether it's sharing their art, whether it's hosting live events, we've been, progressing towards that outlook. I would say the most, exciting thing that we've been doing recently is we just partnered with the school, and we're going to be hosting art sessions during the summer, which is super exciting, especially after a local school has finished doing their DSE exams. So I'm super excited about that. So it's definitely been exciting to grow slowly, but hopefully we can. I don't know. I just feel like it's amazing to be here, and the fact that we were able to get this done despite all our varying time schedules.
Yes, so me and Charlotte are the co-founders of Stressing Kong with a few more people. And Stressing Kong is basically a collaboration between DHS in Singapore and HKUJA in Hong Kong, which are both secondary schools. And our main medium is Instagram, where we've been there for a month, where we post weekly quotes, tips and reminders on how to deal with different mental issues that might pop up with secondary school students. And we also host weekly sessions, I think, which allows students to anonymously talk about their worries on the platform. And there's also a song list with like weekly playlists that we've made a few months ago to help with students for studying and other stuff. Our main aim for this organization is to help people understand what they might be going through and some issues that might be popping up that they don't know how to solve, and for people to understand their mind better.
So actually we started as like a school project. We were working with Singaporeans from DHS, Dunman High School from Singapore. It's like a CCP project. It's kind of like a cross-curricular project where we work together to integrate both our curriculums and like kind of work as a team, a mixed team to like promote mental health. Right now we're still in a project phase where we are under school authority, so there's like a lot of different things we might not be able to commit to or do because school authorities have like a lot of different regulations and stuff. Like I think for the yoga class we held, it had to be like canceled for the last 2 sections because they said for security reasons other participants from other schools are not allowed to like join the class.
I think this is the end of our podcast. We did talk a lot in this Stigma-Free Zone, the collaboration name that we decided on. We talked about trauma, procrastination, toxicity, and eating disorders and or body shame, body images. And I hope that the people listening had like resonated with some of us. And just a quick reminder or disclaimer that we're in no way professionals. We're all just teenagers expressing their own views on mental health issues in the world right now. And so if anything, like, if you didn't agree with anything that we said, we completely respect your opinions, and we're just trying to explain our own point of views. Yeah, I hope that we all got something out of it, especially the speakers as well. It was very nice talking to all of you, and we definitely need to keep in touch after this.